That was really fun today because you would hear melodies being played by Brandon or whoever, and it's like all of a sudden you're quoting it.
Feed me.
You're quoting it.
Yeah, it's feeding me. Music is sensory overload when it's done the way it's intended. It's sensory overload because you think the music is coming from God into your mind. You play it, and then it's going back in your ear while something else is coming from God. Mm-hmm. That's a lot. You're having a stroke. That's a lot. You're having a stroke.
Hi, I'm Norm. I was born and raised in Japan, and I'm half Japanese. When I was a kid, I took a couple strings off an old guitar, and that was the beginning of my career as a bass player. Two of my favorite things are music and sushi. Welcome to my home. I'm Norm Stockton, and this is Grooves and Sushi. The talent level is once again crazy with today's lineup, including the simply astounding Mr. Eddie Brown on keys and vocals, the legendary Zoro on drums, trumpeter to the stars Mr. Brandyn Phillips, cellist extraordinaire Mr. Erdis Maxilaku, and the fabulous Mr. Zach Fensky on guitar. An incredible sushi hang courtesy of Chef Kevin awaits the band, but funk first. Today's tune is Tangibly Teriyaki, an especially fun song given this lineup of monster players. As always, while some of us have worked together in the past, this band has never played together, and this song has never been performed before this taping.
Thank you. You guys killed it. As they say in Japan, kanpai.
Kanpai! I joined a band in Eugene, Oregon in my senior year, and they were a local band. We moved back down to LA because they were going to audition for Disneyland, and they didn't get the job. Within a couple of months, the band was falling apart, and now I'm in LA and I, unemployed, don't know what to do. So I went down to Beverly Hills High School and I pretended to be a new student there. And
oh my gosh, that's crazy.
I did not see that coming.
It gets better.
That's guts.
I pretended to be a new student, but I brought my boom box. I was cranking some Earth, Wind & Fire. Got my Maurice White shirt on because later I worked with those guys. Cranking some Earth, Wind & Fire. Brought my practice pad and sticks. I had my pimped out hat, my yellow silk shirt, and I thought, okay, I'm going to sit on the lawn at lunchtime. I'm just going to crank and play. And I know within a few minutes there's got to be some musicians in the school, and they're going to come up and talk to me because they're going to go, who's that new guy? So that's what I did. Lunchtime came. I sat on the lawn, playing my practice pad. A couple of cats come up to me right away. And the one guy goes, "Oh man, are you new here?" I'm like, "Yeah, I just started going here. I just transferred." And it was like,
as a 13th grader,
I'm kind of stupid. I had to repeat 12th grade, so they sent me here to the most famous high school in America.
Oh my god!
So so this kid that I met we hung out for a few months. He played the bass, and we were driving all around Westwood, all over the place. And eventually he takes me up to his dad's house. And he lives in Bel Air. Now, you got to understand, like, his dad had 5 acres in the top of Bel Air. That's like the most expensive real estate in the world.
Gosh.
So I go up to his dad's house, and I can't believe who his dad is. His dad's like my iconic idol, my hero. His dad's Berry Gordy, the founder of Motown Records. That was like my record label that I had all the 45s I love. Within a couple of weeks, I'm up at the Motown mansion every day. One day I'm there.
So did you, when you met the guy, did he announce himself?
He didn't tell me who he was.
So you didn't know until you went in the house. It's like,
Wow.
you're Berry Gordy?
He was vetting me, kind of. You know, he
Oh,
wanted
yeah.
he wanted to see if I was going to be a
Do I
friend.
want you, somebody that's going to come to my house? Yeah.
Yeah, and so we hung out, and he liked me, and then he took me to his house, and we drive up the driveway. There's pet llamas. It's like Dr. Doolittle. I mean, he's got
Oh my
this,
gosh.
a menagerie of amazing things. And so a few weeks later, I'm up there every day now. And then I see Diana Ross there one day, and then one day I'm playing pin. He's the only kid I knew who had pinball machines. He had pinball machines at home, like the kind you have in an arcade.
Right.
So I'm playing pinball machines by myself. And I, out of the corner of my eye, I see 2 Rolls Royces pulling up. And then 5 minutes later, the doorbell rings, and I open the door. Lo and behold, it's Michael Jackson and the Jackson 5. That was like my group. I wrote in my diary when I was a kid, one day I'm going to meet Michael Jackson and the Jackson 5. Everything I ended up doing, I wrote in my diary as a kid. I said, and one day I'm going to meet Earth, Wind, and Fire, and I'm going to sit next to them on a plane. I'm going to be their friends.
So I was born and raised in Japan, and then when I was 10, we moved to Hawaii for 5 years. Wow. And then I moved back to go and graduate from high school, and then moved to San Diego, and have been in SoCal since then.
So you've been living your best life all your life. Okay.
It's all right. I was talking to my brother recently. It's like everybody probably thinks nostalgically about their upbringing, but I definitely feel like my family's upbringing was very unique, and it was. I'm super grateful for it. Wow. The interesting thing was that, in terms of the musical household thing, in my house, it was like I'm the youngest of 3. My older brother and older sister were like prodigy level musicians when I was a kid. So my brother was like screaming classical guitar player as a kid, and my sister was equally screaming on piano.
Wow.
So for me, I was completely intimidated. It was like, I'm not going to try to do this. I can't even compete at all. Not that it's a competition, but when you're a kid.
Yeah, but when you're a kid, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, why do I even bother? And so, growing up in a Japanese household, so it's like there is the obligatory piano lessons, here and there. But so I took a couple piano lessons.
So that is real.
It's a stereotype, but it's true.
It's a true. Like black folk and chicken. It's true. Okay, I get it.
It's not a bad thing.
It ain't a bad thing, but it is what it is.
And but it never took. I was never serious about it. And as soon as my folks were okay with me quitting, I quit. And it wasn't until when I was 15, I was really into the Beatles, and I took a couple strings off of an acoustic guitar, and just kind of figured out a couple Beatles songs, and that was the beginning of it.
Yeah.
I bought this really terrible bass and started learning Paul McCartney lines.
I do a lot of things where I'm like, this is just what I'm gonna do because I don't know if it makes a difference, but this is my process, and I'm like, so I'm super meticulous.
No.
Making sushi is such a hassle because like every single ingredient, I have to take it out, prep it myself, and then store it correctly. When I make Chinese food, I don't even wipe the cutting board. It all goes together. But the sushi is just meticulous. And I think that's what makes sushi good, is how meticulous can you get? And then the more meticulous you get, the better it becomes.
How much are you fully aware of everything you're doing on a technical level? Like how much of it is I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but I think it's fascinating. I mean, you're obviously a scarily proficient musician. I found it interesting that you weren't reading anything, and I don't know if you memorized the stuff or it was literally you're just hearing it and just going for it.
Just ain't going for it. Just, I studied it, early this morning, but I never actually played it on the keyboard until I got here.
Yeah.
This is what I do. You know the little fuzz busters that you put on your car? You set it to keep the police from hitting you when you speed.
Norm's got 3 of them.
Radar detector.
Radar detectors. They call them fuzz busters in Michigan, where I'm from. You set them, you calibrate them, and then you leave it. I take about the first 8 bars of any time I play, especially in church, to set the level of precision that I gotta play at. The level of precision, the level of feel, how far ahead, how far behind. I take about 8 bars
Just kind of dialing.
to set all of those parameters very fast. I set them and leave them so I can focus on worship then. So the precision is still there. So the groove is still there. So all the feel good is still there. I was 16 years old when my late pastor made me minister of music at a church.
16 years old, full on, man.
Well,
Stop and imagine for a second. Everybody in that band just about was old enough to be my dad.
Now you're telling them what to do.
Did that go over poorly?
that's crazy.
Oh, it went over terribly at first.
Yeah.
Who this kid think he is? At first it didn't go well at all, but it was in those years that I learned people skills. It was in those years I learned how to deal with egos and how to discern where people were coming from. It was in those years. It's kind of early in life to be learning those lessons, but I see why I had to learn them early,
See, that's that way he was able to play with us. He learned how to deal with egos.
He
early
was-
on. It made it
all those
possible to
years-
work with
No,
us today.
y'all don't.
That was
Everything
good.
has been
training.
For this
His
moment of
whole
working
life
with
has
us.
led up to this
Yeah,
moment.
it's led up to this enormous session where you had to deal with Norm and us.
No, y'all, there's no ego problems here. This is one of the most ego-free groups of people I've worked with. And I would not say it if it wasn't true either. Let me tell you.
Thanks, man.
I'm a straight
Well,
shooter.
that's awesome that you feel that way, and honestly, that's a factor on these shoots, because if there's a difficult hang factor, I think that actually comes into play musically too.
Absolutely.
When there's
I agree.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that. I'm sorry. I know she's going to get me
when,
for...
we're gonna have to reshoot that whole scene.
sorry.
when there's a tude factor, it definitely affects, right?
Mess with the music. It mess with the
absolutely.
music.
Yeah. You don't
I
wanna,
got my idea. No, I got mine. You wait and let me get my lick off. It's like, hold on. Can you treat it like conversation?
Yeah.
When you're talking to somebody, you wait for them to say something.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all don't start just saying a bunch of words at the same time. But with music, we think it's the exception to the rule because that ego is something special.
Yeah.
And a lot of people with a lot of talent don't listen.
I think the one thing I wish I would have paid attention to earlier was attention to detail with time. and really getting with a metronome, because the way you play is so. I remember even when we were messing with the demos, like the way you look at time and the detail you have with time is so awesome. So I think, yeah, that would probably be one area I would have told my younger self, and it's cool, and I'm enjoying like locking it down more. But I think that's can be overlooked sometimes, especially with the guitar. Like, we love our notes and we love our boards and we love our everything else. But yeah, I think kind of just what this is, where it's about groove and it's about just attention to detail with time, and all you guys do that so awesomely. So
Yeah, I remember actually when I was doing a lot more hard rock stuff earlier on, that was like one of the last things that ever came up in a conversation. It was mostly like, oh, that was a burning solo. You're
Right,
like,
yeah,
you
totally.
played so fast, you know.
right, yeah, exactly. Crammed all the notes
Yeah.
in.
Later
Yeah.
on, you're like, you start recording. It's like, oh.
So Kenny Gordy was the kid that I met on the lawn, and then a few years later he invited me to record a track with him that Michael Jackson sang on, I Always Feel Like Someone's Watching Me. That was his song. And then, but the other kid that I met on the lawn that day was Lenny Kravitz. And so, Lenny was just a, 17-year-old kid in high school, but I hit it off with both Kenny and Lenny, and they became like my lifelong friends. And then both of them began to introduce me to lots of people in town and began recommending me for different jobs and gigs. And so
nobody at any point is like, so which class are you in? Or-
No, I would go to the library.
forgot about that
I would go to the library while the rest of those guys went to class, and I had like a Walkman, so I'm listening to my music on the Walkman. I had my magazines. And it was 1980. There was nobody cared.
It was pretty loose.
I just kept showing up every day, so that looked like I really belonged there. To this day, Carla Gordy, Bristol, she's the Motown family. I ran into her recently. To this day, she still thought I was a student there because I would see her every single day. And so we got together.
You were just showing up for work.
Yeah, and I just, and then I
Literally.
I would
9 to
sneak,
5.
I would sneak in the band room and I would practice, and I would just be there all day. And then when the bell would ring, then I'd walk back into the hallways like everybody else and just mingle. It was
That's amazing.
yeah.
Wow.
Well, desperation breeds all kinds of things.
Yeah.
When you're desperate and you're hungry, and I didn't want to have to go back to Oregon. I was, my mother said, don't come back here. You gotta find a way to make it. You gotta find a way to stick it out. So that's what I thought of,
Yeah.
And then within a few years, then the first job I started touring with was Philip Bailey, the lead singer of Earth, Wind & Fire.
Yeah.
So that was like in '83, because I started studying drums with Ralph Johnson, the drummer of Earth, Wind & Fire. And he liked me and he liked my playing, and then he was playing with Philip, and he said, you know what, you're ready, I can't do it, I'm sending you out on the gig. And then I was with all these top-notch LA studio players, like Paul Jackson Jr. and all James Jamerson Jr. and all these great players, and I was only like, 20 years old, and so it was a great, way to get better. But
Crazy.
yeah, that's how it all started.
Some of them were so bad they're like repressed memories. My brain, I'm
They're
telling you, my
repressed
brain got rid of them.
It's just figured out.
So
You
bad.
hit delete a
I
long
know
time
that for a
ago.
fact because my brain is like, if it's so bad,
It's sort of like you won't be able to cope if you can remember it.
seriously. I've had some that I'm sure that it's just.
But you know what?
Because I feel them, I just can't remember the details. But I remember having that feeling and being in the studio somewhere.
However, it is super encouraging for the viewers, many of whom are musicians, who,
To know you've made a mistake.
who are not anywhere near the level you are, hearing about your learning experience. Have you had a bad studio experience?
Oh yeah, I had a bad gig experience.
Like what?
I done
what
started the intro to the wrong song, and I mean confident and wrong. And
how far into it was this a concert?
oh man, this had happened to me many a Sunday mornings where I started the song because some of the songs would have the same name,
Oh, you're starting the wrong one.
and I started the wrong one. I mean, and with force though.
You're like-
and the whole band is looking at me like, "What the heck are you playing? That ain't the song."
So do you just quickly change or do you stop?
I just try to change it as fast as I can, but the damage is done. The whole band is laughing at me at that point. It's like, I done already went down in flames.
I was playing with Lenny Kravitz, and we were playing "Are You Gonna Go My Way," and it was not a very very hard song, but my mother had just passed, and my mind was like in a whole another place, and I totally biffed that. I mean, I did it like in the wrong spot, and like no one was with me except me. And Lenny turned around and looked at me like I was like. You know, it's one of those things you can't fix it. You just the train is derailed. It's going off the cliff, and you just do your best to try to repair it. But I remember it made me kind of like, you know, I'd have like nightmares about it, like. And then sometimes when you make a mistake on something, it keeps coming back to haunting you, and then you go, "Am I going to make that mistake next time?"
And every time
you
that
start,
song comes
you
up-
start, you
Absolutely.
start second guessing yourself.
It'll start messing with your
Yeah,
head.
you start. Yeah, it's a mental thing. It's totally psychological. But you start like going, "Hold on, is that the part coming up?" And then you'll just psych yourself out. But
When I was on the road with Link, you know, we played these songs a lot.
Link and Brewster.
Link and Brewster.
Yeah.
I knew the songs very well. Our keyboard player at one point did this video for YouTube, like a promotional clip, and he kind of copied and pasted and kind of created a new arrangement. And I had seen that a couple times. We're doing this festival in South Dakota, wherever it was, and you know, 80,000 people there.
Yeah.
And I messed up the road map because I was thinking, oh no, it's going to tag that thing, thinking about
The other thing.
what the other thing was, and instead of how the song went, and it messed with me for like the next couple of gigs.
Yeah, like-
because it's like all of a sudden it's like, you know, do I even know
Yeah.
what my name is right now? You know, and it's
And then
it is. You just have to kind of mentally go, okay, I have to hit reset right now,
Totally.
or this whole gig is in the toilet. You know.
Yep.
And then it's kind
It
of
happens.
infectious too, because you make a mistake. Like that time I made the mistake. I think we were on the Ellen DeGeneres show, and I made that mistake. Then the next night we were at the American Music Awards, and then the bass player just hits like a total wrong note. And Lenny's like, "What's going on, man?" You guys are like you just like everybody started getting more nervous, and like you know, things that you normally would never even
Yeah.
think twice about. It's like a domino effect.
There's a mental aspect.
Yeah. All of a sudden, it's like you're going, I got to get my mojo back. Like, you know, it's all mental. It has nothing. You know, you could play it. You know, you could execute it in your sleep. But most of the challenges are all mental when it comes to music. But no, I've made so many mistakes. It's unreal. But you know, hopefully you learn and grow from all those experiences. And then when you're in with people that are better than you, that always makes you, you know, like a little nervous because they're more experienced. But hopefully that pushes you to like a higher level.
I think that is invaluable. If you're always the best guy on your gig, that is going to really limit your growth.
It limited me today quite a bit. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Oh yeah, pass that down. This
Yeah, you
way.
guys are letting me hog it over here.
Gosh,
Guys,
how did it sneak by Eddie without him grabbing
Make
one?
sure don't finish it though. Leave one for Eddie.
They quoting scriptures as they going down.
See, I'm thinking, Lord, the whole time that you don't like sushi.
Shall never not die.
I think the scripture that applies here is that blanket being lowered.
That part.
Yeah.
For real.
Oh, good, man.
He's right. Nice, Norm.
Faith and music, to me, they go hand in hand. I mean, because I acknowledged a long, long time ago that my gift that God gave me of music is a gift. And anybody who has a gift, they cannot say they gave it to themselves. That's why it's a gift. So when I play music, I'm always feeling Him in the music. I feel the Holy Spirit in every moment of the music. And the closer I get to the Lord, the closer I get to God's Spirit, the more it plays through me. Because ultimately, I believe we then become the instrument, and He then plays us.